The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show!
Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds. Lawrence?
Ladies and gentlemen! Welcome to the main event! This is Cinesmack! And the winner is...
Hello, Cinesmacketeers, and welcome to bout number 106 of Cinesmack, the podcast about films by filmmakers. I am your host, Mike Keeler. Joining me tonight is our panel of award-winning judges. First, writer, actor, and director, Kyle Fine.
Hello, everybody. Happy New Year 2020. Brand new calendar. Same fat, angry Kyle.
Second, filmmaker and owner of Arizona Ink Studios, Andrew Zumwalt.
That's the power of love. Dun, 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 the power of love. Dun, 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 dun.
Third, filmmaker and owner of One Genome Short Productions, Gabriel Babe Runner Rowald.
Nice. Yeah, happy 2020, people.
Fourth, filmmaker and owner of Cheshire Moon Films, Mr. Timothy Haggis.
I'm really excited to be here on our third episode.
Again.
So that's a gag. I'm going to pretend I don't know what year it is the entire time.
We've gone back.
I'm going to pretend we don't know what movies we're doing as well.
Okay.
We've gone back to redo our third episode.
I can't wait to talk about Looper.
So, did you guys have a good Christmas? Good New Year's? Everyone?
Absolutely.
Anyone? Yeah?
It was good.
My 2020 was off to a great start until I sat down and watched one of these movies.
Wow.
Oh. You talking about Looper?
No, The Core.
Oh.
That's a good callback. Yeah. Good callback.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Deep Blue Sea.
All right, let's start our third episode with our ringing of the bell by the monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, time-looping teachers and temporal secret agents, welcome to the main event! Tonight, two mind-twisting tales of disaster prevention go back and forth along the timeline to try and arrive in first place. In the first corner from 2011, written by Ben Ripley and directed by Duncan Jones. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Michelle Monaghan, and Vera Farmiga. Source Code! In the second corner, from 2014, written and directed by the Spirit Brothers, Ethan Hawke, Sarah Snook, and Noah Taylor. Predestination!
Let's go. First round, which is writing.
Wow. Wow. This is how we're starting a new decade. Wow. Let's go. All
Start
right.
as you mean to go on.
Start it. Whoa. All right. Well, I guess I'm talking about writing. I did a lot of cool little research about the writing because I've always found these two movies fascinating and how they actually came up with their ideas just from basic time travel. And I do want to start off and say that Bill and Ted's is the one that kind of just throws all of your traditional time travelness that you would think of to the wind, but definitely lines up with the fact that it's probably what every single person in high school would do if they had a time machine. But they kind of give up on everything else, and anything else when it comes to actual time travel.
Hold on, Andrew.
Yeah.
What movies did you watch?
I don't know. What movies did we watch?
We were supposed to watch Source Code versus Predestination.
Oh.
I think Andrew's traveled to the wrong timeline.
Yeah, I sure did.
Oh,
It was your recommendation.
My research really sucked.
Have you, Andrew? You've seen both?
I have seen both of those.
Are you prepared to talk about those two?
hold on. This can be great. Andrew, you just talk about these two movies, and the rest of us will talk about the movies we actually watch.
Whoa, wait. This is really happening? You didn't just steal my bit?
Evidently, why do I don't know. I evidently had those written down wrong. So
our original original selection was Bill and Ted versus what?
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
And then Andrew.
And that's what I had written
But
down.
then you pointed out, Andrew, that we had done Bill and Ted's way back.
Yeah.
Like 100 years ago.
Oh my God.
And then we changed it. And I was afraid maybe I watched the wrong ones. Although it's been a long time since I've seen Back to the Future. I wouldn't.
Is it possible Andrew went back and changed something? And so in his world, that's the movies we're doing.
Can we Skype across parallel universes?
I think it's happening right now.
I think it might be.
Well, all right. Yeah, we can definitely talk about these. Let's talk about source code first then. Holy cow.
Well, do we want...
I love this
I don't know.
so
Maybe
much.
this will be in
Crazy.
the episode. I don't know. But do we want to
I cannot believe this hasn't
kind of-
happened before. I feel like this
to start
something.
over and cut out a piece.
I feel really bad. I'm sorry, everybody. I did a ton of research on both of those movies and how they were writing. And
I was wondering why before the show you kept dropping Back to the Future quotes.
Yeah,
and it was
same
just
here.
Like,
Yeah.
what do you? Oh, I get it. Okay, that's funny. I thought you're okay.
no, that's what I thought we'd. Yep.
I love it. I love this.
Let's move on to our first round, which is writing.
We're going to start with source code for real this time. So with source code, I do want to say that it is probably one of the most unique twists on a time travel type of movie that is not 100% time travel, but yet is time travel and technology built into one, and felt that it was a very unique portrayal of an abnormal way of telling a time travel story. From the beginning, you're not entirely sure what's going on. You see the repetition, sort of other time travel type movies where you see him doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it really puts that interest of what's actually happening until you actually break into, they slowly evolve the story inside of the actual story that you're watching, as well as slowly evolve his story at the same time. And I found the parallels in that quite immense and very, very cool. And I found it very fascinating how they really twisted in that. Is it actually time travel, or is it like a Matrix, or is it both? And so I really felt that story was a bit more compelling than just your traditional he's in a computer or he's in a simulation. And then that twist at the end really adds, I thought, to the way that it was written, and made the story much more rewatchable. Because the very first time that I watched it, when it very first came out, I was like, wow, what happened? I'm so lost. And I've had to watch it multiple times to really catch in to what is actually going on. And for real, I have watched this movie multiple times. So I can really stand by that. So moving over to Predestination, which is also one of those very big twisty movies that you just go, wait, what just happened? Is another reason why this movie is so remarkable in the way that it's told. Again, you start off with a story that is just slowly telling you little bits and pieces. And as the actual story unfolds, you realize there is time travel involved, and you realize that those time travel sequences are affecting the other time travel sequences when he comes back to the present. And splitting between those two and seeing how those overlap and all are happening right at the exact same time, and how he's affecting his life at the same time that he's affecting other people's lives, is quite amazing. And now the writer for Predestination, he has done multiple different short stories. Robert Heinlein. I don't know if that's correct, but Heinlein, I think is how you say his last name. He has written quite a few science fiction short stories that are all based around a similar aspect of the way that Predestination is told, where something in the past and the future affect the exact present that is currently happening, that then affect the past to affect the future. And it's really cool to know that they've taken one of those short stories and made it into a full length, so you can actually watch this and see it develop as it goes. I know that, again, with this one, it was one of those that I watched the first time and I had to watch a second time, and I actually went out and read a couple of his other short stories to really get a feel for what he was really doing. I would say that the short story is much easier to understand than the movie, and I think part of that is just because they had to stretch it for time. But there is a lot going on in the movie versus what was actually happening in the stories. But overall, I thought they did a nice adaptation. I know other people have said that they were confused and weren't exactly sure what Doc Brown was actually doing in his garage. So does anybody else have any input on that? You're welcome. And then out for 2020.
I thought I really like source code, and I had seen it a long time ago. I'm Warcraft aside, I'm a huge Duncan Jones fan, but it was kind of fun to see what he did when he had a bigger budget. Even though Moon is a masterpiece, but
absolutely, yeah.
Getting into Predestination, I really liked it, and it kind of pulled me in for about the first hour or so. But then I just the story kind of became so twisted. I'm gonna guess it's about when she turned into a man. It became a little bit too contrived for me. One of the problems I had with the story is that there's the scene right before Ethan Hawke steals the baby, where Noah Taylor says that you're a predestination paradox. You have no beginning, you have no end. And at that point, I went, "Holy shit, that's John!" And I was like, "That was the reveal." For me, I was like, "Oh, okay." And I they just, "Oh, okay, that's so cool. What a cool way to do it." And then it gets to the end, and there's a real dramatic. They show him with his shirt off and his scars, and I was like, "Yeah, they told us this already. like Noah Taylor told us that that's who he was, and so I kind of felt like at the end I was not in sync with the story the filmmakers were trying to tell at that point, because at that point they had kind of like lost their latch on me, because Predestination is such a story that you really need to follow it beat by beat by beat. Otherwise you kind of you're going to get lost in the gears of everything. But one of the things that so that bothered me, and I was just kind of like, it was such kind of a contrived story, and it tried a little bit too hard to be too clever. And I was driving home from work today thinking about it, and I was like, you know what it was like? It was like those trashy pulp novels. Oh, okay. And like that, I had that realization that it was like the true confession stories that they wrote, that it kind of harkened back to those, contrived, twisted tales that people would buy for a dime. So then my respect for it went up a little bit, that even the storytelling mechanism was even kind of a twist upon itself. So I thought that was pretty clever. Source Code, on the other hand, I thought was just such a cool way to kind of tell that looping time travel and the problems that you would have with time travel. Jake Gyllenhaal doesn't have sex with himself, which I thought was a plus. So I don't know. I'll pass it on to you guys.
I don't know.
He's pretty good looking. He might
be
want
amazing though.
Sure.
Yeah, but when Michelle
That?
Monaghan's the alternative.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
Good point.
Even Vera from Make Me Grind.
So I'm with you, Tom, on the ending of Predestination. I also had a few moments throughout the movie where I had suspicions about the twist that was coming, and by the end of the movie, and I don't know if this is by virtue of them stretching out a short film, they really start hammering you over the head with it in case you didn't get it, and that always bugs me a little bit. When a movie is attempting to be a smart sci-fi movie, and then at the end it's like, just in case you didn't get it. I don't know, that kind of bugs me. Maybe that's more directing or in the overall category. But as far as writing goes, I'll talk about the ideas behind the movies a little bit and then their execution. So I find the idea of Predestination to be fascinating because it is an interesting and different take on time travel and inevitability, and there is a lot in the story that's interesting and feels different to me than a lot of time travel movies. And it's, for all of its weird twists and turns, there's really not that many actors in it. It's very intimate because you spend so much time with one character or two characters. Intimate may be a poor choice of words.
You really do spend the entire movie with one character.
You really do, yeah. So it's kind of like Moon, which is a Duncan Jones movie. It's funny. True. But Source Code felt more to me like kind of a boilerplate science fiction movie. And I felt like the characters were not nearly as well developed as they are in Predestination. But at the same time, Predestination only deals with that one character. And it is meant to be this close examination of this person's life, basically from beginning to end. The ideas in Source Code were interesting, but I felt like it was a bit haphazard at points. I like some of the repetition. I like time travel movies in general, but I definitely had issues with the way the story was told. Predestination was I don't want to say unique, but it was a very different telling of the film. Although I think there were a lot of scenes in it that could maybe have been cut. And it's only like an hour and 37 minutes, but there are definitely times when it feels either long or repetitive or like it's beating you over the head with something.
And I think part of that is definitely the pull from the fact that it is a short story and it's not very long, that he wrote in I don't even remember, like 1960 or something.
Yeah, I think it's
there.
1959.
Yeah, and so I mean it's a pretty short little story that you read and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I would definitely say that part of maybe the choices that were made, I guess, don't help for the fact that the screenplay was adapted from the story by the same people who directed it. So they're not going to, they don't have anybody to what you'd consider check and balance, or say, hey, what about this? Let's change this, or I wrote it this way, but the director sees it a different way. They are the ones producing the image that they wrote. And so I that potentially could hinder some of those scenes and those moments where you're just like, yeah, okay, we get it. Let's move on.
Mm.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I think Predestination also relies very heavily on the fact that the primary character cannot recognize themselves at different periods of time. Because if they knew that they were themselves, it wouldn't work. Do you know what I mean? Like they can't. So there have to be several transitions in there of that character's physical appearance. So the transition from woman to man, and then the transition from one face to another. And it relies very heavily on that. Otherwise, the idea wouldn't work.
So, just a quick question: did you feel like when John met Jane, he did not know that was him previously?
I think the way they played it, I felt like they didn't. They didn't recognize each other. They recognized some sort of commonality, but I don't think they recognized themselves as the same individual.
Interesting.
In my opinion, when I viewed it, it seemed like they had, because I realized that Jane didn't have any friends and she was very isolated, and that it almost makes sense that she would fall in love with herself because there was no one else that she could possibly fall in love with. But I'm not sure that she would literally fall in love with herself if she knew it was herself. She fell in love with a similar personality.
So I read the story, and I'll just check with everybody else to see if we're reading it the same way, as baby Jane, female Jane, and then male Jane knows about female Jane and baby Jane. But it's because of the paradox in the story, it's inevitable that they're together and that they create a life, because without that, Jane can't exist.
Yeah.
And I guess Ethan Hawke is final boss mode Jane, where he's had his face burned off and he knows everything. So as I see them as they change, they know what their predecessors know.
I guess it depends on which character's perspective you're coming from.
Yeah,
because Jane didn't know that. I felt like Jane didn't know it was John, was her.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But John may have known that it was.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the way I read it. Is that
he would recognize that was him in the past.
Yeah, John definitely knew. Definitely knew that was her. That was him.
Right. So, yeah, John's weird. Jane can be forgiven, but John's just weird for making love to his former self. I don't know.
Kyle, what's that like?
It relies very heavily on the fact that they don't recognize each other necessarily, or that the future ones only the future ones recognize the past ones.
That's what I was thinking, is that as you go along in the future, you recognize your past selves. Because I had to assume that Ethan Hawke knew that was him walking into the bar. He must remember what he looks like.
Well, he had already gone through this. He had lived it.
True, yeah.
Well, then he was also making references to information that only he would know.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. The future selves are the only ones who recognize themselves.
Is it just a pull of? I mean, you could go really, I don't know, flowery and pink right here and say, is it a pull of it's true love and they always will find each other, even though they're finding themselves?
Maybe.
I mean, if
Yeah,
you were
there's different ways to read it.
if you were looking at it from they were two different people completely, and let's say they weren't the same person, and this continually happened, and it was to be able to create one or the other, it would be seen as a love story of them being brought together, and that no matter where in time and no matter how many times this happens, they will always be brought back together. So, could it be said for the same thing when they're the same person?
I don't know.
It's
I
still
think
true
it also begs the question: would you love your former self?
Maybe your former self was hot.
I don't know.
So you would have a connection with that person that you probably could never have with anyone else.
Yeah.
Because you would have the same thoughts, same feelings, same opinions on a lot of things. And we know from the story they tell that Jane was an incredibly isolated person, and John is as well. So when you see someone who is like a perfect fit for you, and you've thought your whole life, you've wanted love your whole life, but never been able to find anyone to connect with, that may be completely irresistible to them.
Mm-hmm. Right. But that's, I mean, in the real world, though, people are generally attracted to not the mirror image of themselves, but the inverse image of themselves. So John and Jane would probably last all of 6 months and just be like, "You are boring."
Hey,
there are no surprises.
They made a baby.
Yes, I like apple pie too.
Yeah.
I mean, they made a baby and then he checked out.
That's true. That is true. He did leave.
So there's that 6 monthts.
He had changed.
He's like,
literally.
Moving on.
Yeah.
I gotta go with Ethan Hawke now.
Now, and source code. One thing about source code for me, I kind of enjoyed both of these. The thing about source code to me, though, is that he's supposed to basically be, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but he's basically supposed to be in somebody's memory, right? He gets 8 minutes in somebody else's memory.
Right. His brain patterns are synced up with somebody else's for 8 minutes.
Right. But how does it change? So each time he goes back, something changes. Somebody says something different. Somebody does something a little bit different. How would 8 minutes of an existing memory ever change? And
that's what I think is unique about this.
After that 8 minutes, it's open game. But during that 8 minutes, it should be the exact same thing, because it was one single memory that was recorded for that 8 minute period.
No, it wasn't one. It wasn't one single memory. It was like a combination of multiple memories of the people that were on the train. That's how they were able to recreate.
But how did those people react differently from? If I experience a moment, I experience it once, and that is it. And my memory of that moment doesn't ever. It changes over time because my memory is bad. But if someone were able to like actually go in and get my exact memory of an exact moment, it would never change. Every time you played that memory, every time you viewed that memory, it wouldn't change. The people I encountered wouldn't say different things. I wouldn't be in different places. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't see different things because that is all I experienced during that one memory. That's my problem with source code. I found source code really enjoyable, but when I thought about he's supposed to be in that. So that 8 minutes is the same memory over and over and over.
I have to say, hold it. I've got to say, I agree with Larry in what he's saying.
Okay, but
no, you're not thinking.
Yeah.
He has some sort of agency in this person's body. He can move around in this world and change things.
And as soon as he goes into the body, he starts. So think of it like a pool of water that starts at the exact same stasis. And then once you put your foot in, every single time you put your foot in, suddenly the currents are moving in a different direction every time you do it, because you can't do it the exact same time every single time.
It changes.
Yeah, but it does start the exact same way every single time. But once he starts interacting with the people, that's what changes.
Then anything that's different from the original memory is just it's just some sort of algorithm. It's not real. It's not
Yeah. Well, it turns out to be.
There's only one true memory of it. If you're in an individual's memory, there's only one. They only looked at that person at a given time. They only interacted with that person at a given time. Anything else is just maybe the source code program, extrapolating from that. Like, right. Well, this person might have done this thing.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they did do that thing.
So
anything other than the original memory is just complete false. It's just complete made up.
But that's what makes this story so compelling and so out there, because they end with him completely changing what we think is potentially the real world, or is it actually still part of the simulation that has been changed? Did he actually time travel, or is he changing the program? And the whole intent was not time travel in the first place. So this is actually what makes this movie so amazing and compelling, because this is not a time travel movie. You're right. He is in a computer simulation. For those 8 minutes, sure. It is a computer simulation that is simulating the information that they have gathered.
Yeah, but how could it possibly accurately simulate?
Well, it's
who the actual bomber was.
The science is real hand wavy.
It's not even possible.
It's
just a guess then at that point.
And
maybe
true.
We got the guy.
But then how did he actually change it so much that they actually changed it from happening?
Well, and that's always a problem with time travel movies. But now, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it very much, and I thought it was a very fun, compelling concept. But it falls apart if the whole basis of the concept is that it is a person's memory. We have this. There was a person who, I don't know, survived for a period of time long enough for us to access his memory. Or, that I don't remember what the explanation was. It was 8 minutes, after a person dies, you have 8 minutes of whatever the last 8 minutes was. You have that. You can get that. I don't remember the exact explanation to it, but it kind of falls apart if that is your starting point.
But because
what's that?
It wasn't just one. It's a conglomerate of all of the people, all of the different cameras,
That's not what the movie said, though. The movie, it was one dude. There was one dude who died, and we were able to access his memory, and we got it.
Yeah, they mentioned.
So you go back and the guy that he goes back to, that she thinks she's talking to, is the one guy's memory that they have of that situation. Now, like I said, I'm not trying to I am overanalyzing, but it doesn't necessarily ruin the enjoyment of it. I think it's fun, but I wondered throughout. It's like, well, how's it changing?
But again, that is kind of the point of the movie in general, though, is because at the end he changes the movie, or he changes the story, he changes the outcome. How is that even possible?
Well,
this is not a time travel movie.
Anything after that is. Anything after that 8 minutes is fair game.
But if it's just
whatever, because I think what we're supposed to believe until she gets that text, which muddies the waters, we can be led to believe that in his mind he continued on with this girl that he had been interacting with in this other man's memory. And then they muddy the waters with this whole text where she receives this text. But I guess we don't know what her situation is.
How does
we don't know? Maybe she's in one of those things too, and maybe maybe it's all part of the same.
How does he continue on?
What's that?
How would he continue on if it's only 8 minutes that they have? How is it possible that they could actually continue on?
Exactly.
And change anything?
That's what I'm saying.
But that's
I didn't know if that was some sort of an afterlife.
That's my point.
In his mind, maybe he could continue after that 8 minutes, and it would be his mind that would take over.
But that's that's the point of the movie, though, is that this method they came up with is a pathway to an alternate reality.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Inception. Like, what if your mind doesn't know the difference? What is reality?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and then we can get into that with both of these movies, and maybe we should save that for later. Is alternate universes and that kind of thing, because maybe this spawned an alternate universe, but
But that's what's so compelling, I think, about this story is because it's not quite your traditional. It's not time travel, but it is at the same time. It's really bizarre.
It is, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it, and I was really rooting for him to figure it out, and
Sure.
and and I think they took the easy way a little bit with the ending. They made it like, oh, super happy ending. He gets to continue on with this girl that he's fallen in love with, and
But
it's a little bit the easy ending. Which, if you want to sell a movie, you kind of have to do. But I just feel like the fact that he's in somebody else's memory, that is a given thing, that it changes over time, doesn't make sense to me. During that 8 minutes, if it changes, it doesn't make sense to me. Anything before or after that is fair game. The program is extrapolating. But I'm putting you in this 8 minutes of this guy's memory, and his memory can only have one interaction with that person, and that's what it was. He didn't punch that guy and then also not punch that guy.
And it's an awesome technology. We don't know exactly how the technology works. I mean, there has to be some suspension of disbelief.
We can just say that. We can just excuse it all if we want to.
That's what you have to do in time travel movies, because the science behind it is always going to be super hand wavy. And in source code, it's really bad.
So
it's interesting.
So do you think that he's dead?
What's that?
Do you think that he is dead? At the end of the movie, she goes into the chamber, she breaks in, and she fulfills his wishes to kill him and end his life.
Yeah. Does it like pause then? I don't remember. Does it pause with him kissing her and that's it? Then it's done. Like he doesn't have any other. He doesn't have any further interaction in that.
Yeah,
no, it keeps going.
They go to the bean and they
go
talk and they go get coffee and
they live on. And that's where I'm asking is, do you think...
So it's either a Jacob's Ladder situation where he's dead, but he's living on in his mind, or he's really changed time, and so he's actually still alive because she hasn't killed him in his tube.
And that's
man, did you just ruin Jacob's Ladder?
Oh, sorry, man.
Fuck.
He's not in a tube, though. I think you're okay.
That's what's so amazing about that story.
Yeah, Again, I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch. But I did have a hard time with it changing each time he went in, because of that reason. Because if it was a single person's memory, like if he had gone in as different people, and they saw different things, and he experiences each person's memory, cool.
Well,
and he could still fall in love with that girl.
I can tell you as a programmer that there's a lot of times you run the same test 100 times and you get different results every single time, and you shouldn't, but you do.
No.
Yeah, it happens.
The same data doesn't give you different results.
It's possible.
We need to talk about coding, Andrew.
We do.
Because that doesn't happen.
You guys
give
should
it different
talk about
data, maybe.
Source coding.
Yeah.
And on that note, we're going to take a vote.
Okay.
Andrew.
I am going to go with Predestination, or Back to the Future.
All right, Kyle.
It was predetermined that I choose Predestination.
Are you kidding me?
Gabe.
Yeah, I think I've always picked Predestination.
And Tom.
I'm going to go with You're All Morons. I mean, Source Code. Sorry. Source
We
Code.
didn't watch that movie this time.
I saw that coming.
I'm sorry. I will give Predestination some credit later on, but Sorry, not on story. It's just too much.
The screenplay.
I did
too much.
some trivia. Maybe Mike, you have this about it's a review. It was actually a review. Someone said it's Predestination is for people who like making charts.
I like making charts, but it's for people who like making figure eights.
The screenplay for Source Code was featured in the 2007 Blacklist, a list of the most liked unmade scripts of the year. Predestination is based on, as Andrew said, a Robert A. Heinlein short story, and it's called All You Zombies. It doesn't give a date when it was published, but you can look that
That
up.
line got snuck into the movie too.
1959.
1959. All right. Let's move on to our second round, which is acting.
My favorite. Okay, so there are a few things to deal with in each movie. I'll try to be succinct. Source Code. Jake Gyllenhaal is pretty good in everything. He's great in some things. The rest of the characters in this movie are pretty flat. A lot of them are caricatures. They have one emotion and one note. And I know that sometimes you are repeating the same 8 minutes, so characters don't change all that much, but a lot of them are paper thin. Also, I like Jeffrey Wright quite a bit, but his evil for no reason at the end was a bit weird. Vera Farmiga is good. She's always good. So passable, but nothing extraordinary. Jake Gyllenhaal, best actor. Makes a lot of sense. He's the main character, gets the most to do. Michelle Moynihan, very sweet and cute, but really repetitive. As is a lot of the acting in the movie because it's done over and over again. So, Predestination. Whether you like this movie may come down to whether or not you like Ethan Hawke. And I think he can be a polarizing actor for some people. Some people like him, some people don't. I happen to like him quite a bit. Also, Sarah Snook, I believe it is pronounced, is amazing as Jane/John in these dual roles, considering what they have to do and the fact that I knew this movie was a small Australian, kind of independent movie. So I knew I wasn't going to know many of the actors in it. And I did not glean on to the fact that John was Jane right away when they came into the bar and started telling the story and going back. I did not put that together because she looks very different. And I thought this could just be an independent actor or an androgynous actor. I don't know. If you'd have told me Tilda Swinton was in this movie, I'd have known right away that's Tilda Swinton because that's the kind of stuff she does. But I was mesmerized by her performance. I thought it was very challenging. She did a really good job. And I liked the acting in Predestination quite a bit. I like crazy Ethan Hawke with fucked up teeth and his long hair. That was really fun. Yeah, man, it's Predestination, I think, is kind of a hidden gem for her performance because she's really given a shit ton of stuff to do. And she does it really, really well. And I was really impressed by that. And yeah, I like Ethan Hawke quite a bit. So while he may bother some people, I like him.
Yeah, I thought Ethan Hawke, I don't know if you could have played that with, somebody else very well. He went in and out of the different, basically himself in different times very well in playing those characters as being individual characters. And I don't know, maybe there is, Shia LaBeouf maybe is crazy enough that he can maybe have pulled that off. I don't know if he would have been as charming or good looking as a woman, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I would definitely have to agree that not Jake Gyllenhaal. See, I'm already on the other movie. Woo, time. Ethan Hawke really pulled off that different points in his life and being able to portray that well, especially the ending. I loved him at the end. He was great, crazy, and just, I'm going to blow everything up. F it.
I want to watch a movie about that guy's life.
Right?
That dude looks like he's lived some shit.
He is gone. That's a movie that I want to see. See, that's a spinoff right there. And in the universe that is already there, maybe that's him, and we don't know. It could, yeah. So, as with Jake Gyllenhaal, he's a great actor. I've seen him in a lot of stuff. It's a pretty basic, almost romance thriller at the same time. I thought everyone did a nice job. Michelle Monaghan.
Moynihan?
Moynihan?
Wait, is there Moynihan?
Monahan.
Monahan.
Yeah.
Isn't she from around here?
She's from Winthrop, Iowa.
Wow. Well, she's fabulous. She's, she does a really nice job. She's beautiful and, good times. And she's definitely the damsel in distress at the same time that she can, kick a little ass. So, yeah, I didn't really find anybody totally over the top. I don't know. There was nobody in that I actually saw that did a performance that I was like, oh my gosh. I thought it was fun that Scott Bakula's voice was in it because that gave me a giggle back to good old Quantum Leap. But other than that,
there you go. That'd be a good recommendation.
Quantum Leap.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there were a lot of pretty good performances in these films. I like Jake Gyllenhaal and Michelle Monaghan or however we want to say it, and Vera Farmiga. I like Ethan Hawke. I like some of his other movies, like what's the one where he's pretending to be someone else to get on this space flight. I don't remember the name of it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm.
E.T.?
Yes, E.T.
E.T. Yeah.
Explorers.
No.
Yeah, he goes into space, and that's Ethan Hawke.
He does.
Sure.
He does.
But
Yes, you're correct.
That's not the one I'm talking about.
Oh my God, I love the Explorers.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
That's not the one I'm talking about, though. But I like Ethan Hawke. Gattaca is the one.
Yes, Gattaca.
Oh,
I said that.
Yeah.
You said that? Oh, I'm sorry.
I did.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear you either.
Ernest Borgnine's in that movie.
What other great well, not great, but what other well-known sci-fi movie is Ernest Borgnine in, Kyle? Do you know?
Is he in Blade Runner?
No. That's a good guess because you're talking to me.
The black hole.
No.
The black hole. The black hole.
Well, he is in that. That's a good one too. That's
Isn't he in the show Airwolf?
Yes.
What the hell are we doing?
We're naming Ernest Borgnine credits.
Right. I'm thinking of Soylent Green, but
anyway.
Oh yeah.
I've never seen Soylent Green.
Oh,
it's made of
It's not a
people.
Don't
They're
go out of your.
people. It's people.
Yeah.
The movie poster is awesome. Does not reflect anything in the movie.
My only problem with Predestination was that I felt like at times they were just kind of reciting their lines a little bit, and I can't blame them because it was kind of a complicated, scenario, and I feel like sometimes they were just like saying their lines, and they had to be very careful about how they said them, so that they didn't mess up. So they didn't reveal anything before it was too soon. And so I felt like they were very calculated with their delivery of the lines. It didn't feel natural at times. And that was my only, criticism of the acting in Predestination. Otherwise, I think the acting was pretty good throughout both of those films.
Yeah, this is all right. So I give Predestination a little bit of credit. I thought Sarah Snook was really amazing, and it's one of those things where you don't realize how really great she is until halfway through the movie, and so I don't know. I'm not really sure how they could have done it, but I feel like Ethan Hawke, some of like the mannerism stuff should have carried over a little bit more between the two characters. I feel there are certain speaking patterns and tics that we have that kind of indicate, that are particular to, like for example, I can't complete a sentence. So I was expecting,
neither.
Did they explain the voice differences? Did they talk about Ethan Hawke's after he got burned?
Yeah, it singed his vocal cords.
Right. Yep. Yeah. See, that's another thing that they have to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess if that had carried, I don't feel like there's a whole lot. Watching it a second and third time, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of those mannerisms carry over between the two characters. But like you said, Jake Gyllenhaal is good in everything he does, and I mean source code I like more, but as far as the acting goes, I mean Sarah Snook's performance alone will win the category for me. So let's vote.
So that's Tom's vote.
All right. Well,
all right, I'm going to log out for about 15 more minutes. I'll let you know.
Yeah, it's hard not to vote while you're discussing it.
Are you guys done talking about acting?
Sure.
Anything you want to add? All right, Kyle.
Predestination.
All right, Gabe.
I'm on the fence on this one. I agree with Tom on, Sarah Snook's performance, but I also like Jake Gyllenhaal in Source Code. Okay, gonna flip code. I'm gonna go with Source Code.
All right, Tom.
I gotta go Predestination.
Andrew.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Oh wait, Predestination.
All right,
Keanu Reeves.
Sarah Snook spent more than 4 hours every morning in the makeup chair for being turned into John.
Really?
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it would take that much. It was basically...
That's why it took 4 hours, so it wouldn't look like it took that much.
Right. It just looked basically like her without any makeup and,
Right. Remember all the good special effects are the ones that you don't notice.
That you don't, yeah.
Vera Farmiga stated that she took the role just at the start of her pregnancy in February of 2010. She knew that in that scenario, she would be unavailable for the next 10 months. She filmed her scenes in 10 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 days?
10 days.
Wow, that's impressive.
All right, let's move on to our third round. Directing.
We talked about this a little bit in writing, and it may be, the result of the fact that Predestination was pulled from a short story. So I felt like in Predestination there was a period. I think there are certain important story points that we have to know in order to understand, the whole story at the end. But there's a part where I felt like they're really dragging this out. They're getting into extreme detail about the story of Jane, John, whatever. The whole scene in the bar really felt like it took a long time to me. And I feel like we could have gotten those same story points in less time. But I feel like they were stretching it out so that it would be at least an hour and a half. So it would be a feature-length film instead of a short film. And so I just felt like, for me, that was an issue with directing. Like they really could have improved the pacing in that part. Once that part was done, and they got into the showing us all the time travel and like all the different versions of Jane and John and all that kind of thing. Well, then it got pretty like, whoa, slow down a little bit. There's a lot happening here. And I get we need to have that understanding. We have to have that kind of emotional connection to that character. But I felt like the pacing was a problem in Predestination. Source Code, on the other hand, the pacing was pretty consistent throughout. It just threw you in, and it just went. It was like the train that you were on. It just went and didn't spend too much time explaining things. It didn't wait too long in between, the action sequences, and the pacing on Source Code to me was much better. I think we often talk about cinematography in this category, and I liked the cinematography in Predestination. I really liked the lighting, and there was this darkness to it that I really liked. And Source Code looked good too, but I felt like Predestination was more interesting from a cinematography standpoint.
Did anybody else think Source Code had like a weird greenish, yellowish filter on it? Or some kind of, I don't know, maybe it was the time, or maybe it's just me seeing it that way. But it looked a little saturated in places, and I didn't really care for that much. I love the shot choices and a lot of the composition in Predestination. I agree with you a bit about the pacing. It starts very, very slow. Very slow, and then it does ramp up and slow down and ramp up and slow down. I think the twists are pretty well done. There are a few of them for sure in the movie, and they're pretty well done. I didn't like the repetition of them kind of hitting you over the head with a few things once you've already kind of figured it out. But at the same time, I don't know how much of that is you have to play to the slowest person in the audience who's going to really wait till the end to figure it out. You don't want anyone to leave unsatisfied, but at the same time, if you're doing a heady science fiction time travel think piece, leaving that dangling works in your favor more than I think clubbing you over the head with it. Yeah. I agree with you at points. It felt like they were stretching it out because they knew it had to be 90 minutes. And there were some shots that were, I thought were kind of unnecessary. Like when she's doing the space simulation with her helmet on. And for some reason she's having like a trippy, weird experience. It's almost something out of like a 70s psychedelic movie. I was like, I don't understand. That doesn't really fit with anything. And it just went on. And we get it. She can fight. We see that a bunch. So there are points that are repeated for sure. But I think overall, for knowing what it is a more low budget. I don't know if it's necessarily completely independent, but time travel, movie. It's done really well. And I think they handle the time travel, I don't know what you'd call it, gag, where they disappear and reappear, and there's like this gust of wind. And you have to give some sort of visual representation that people are jumping through time. And I thought it was subtle enough that it wasn't crazy. And it looks nice, like they just kind of disappear and reappear. I like the explanation of it makes you sick and it's really disorienting and stuff like that. But I don't know why they chose a violin case for the time travel machine. But then I sat and thought about it. That's the one thing that over the course of like 60 or 80 years, you're not going to get a lot of second looks carrying, because that's never really changed. You have to carry your violin around in a violin case. So if you had a backpack or a laptop, you'd have to have something specific to the time period that doesn't stand out. And an instrument case has not changed, in like 60 or 80 years. So that actually made sense for me after I thought about it for a while.
Yeah.
But you could be carrying that around.
Sure. At any time.
In almost any time period. And
right.
Really.
After the violin has been invented.
Yes.
For having
you might not be able to go back too far.
Well, they say you can't go 23 years further than like 1981.
Yeah.
Or the time wake collapses, which is another hand wavy science thing. Why don't you go back to the dinosaurs or whatever,
Because go back and kill Hitler, basically.
Right. Well, it's sort of like in a science fiction time travel movie, the things work the way they tell you, and you have to accept that. if you start pulling at them, the whole damn thing falls apart. So yeah, you have to be careful with that.
They couldn't go back past 1530. That's when violin was invented.
1530. That's a long damn time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you got some leeway there. So was it 1981 just convenient? Like what was special about 1981? Was it just convenient in the timeline?
That's the year Robertson invented time travel.
Right.
It's
but
also
what
very
about 1981
convenient.
made us. Why did we pick 1981 for that year?
If you think about I started to think about this movie as Robertson's quest or test to create someone who was completely paradoxical and free from time, free from any connections to other people. And so when you say 23 years either way, and that's the idea that's been planted in his head, that might not be true. It's just enough time for him to take Jane back, but not enough that he can't jump too far in the future and find out the truth about things. I don't know. So maybe it's not really, because the only person we hear that from is him. And we know that he's being manipulated to some degree by Robertson.
So they said 23 years either way?
Yeah, they call it 0 hour, or I can't remember what they call it.
0 point.
Right, 0 point. 1981, and it's some jump of years, 25 years maybe on either side.
Isn't it 45 when he takes her to the orphanage?
46.
45 or 46? That's more than 23 years from 81, isn't it?
No, I thought it was 51 years.
It might be 53.
Oh, it could be.
I don't remember.
I don't
Something
know. I
like
don't
that.
remember what the number is.
He's given a window, and we don't know how much of that is really, true that you can or can't do that. But either way.
But it also assumes that there has to be a start, right? There has to be one moment where it actually starts, because it's kind of a closed loop. But there has to be.
Yes.
There has to be some moment in time where does it start?
1981 would be the inception of the time travel, and then there is a 53-year gap on either side that you can stretch the fabric of reality, and any point past that it becomes too unstable, and they say the time wake collapses.
Where does Jane start? There has to be a first iteration of Jane, right? You know what I
don't
mean?
know,
Like
because it's all paradoxical. It's all tied into itself.
It's coming out in the prequel, Predestination.
What a boring movie. Nothing can happen that would change Predestination.
Because it does imply, I mean, even the title implies that even though it's got all this kind of like messed up timeline, that it isn't changed. They're not changing anything, if you think about it.
Right, and it plays with the ideas
they're
of
predestined to
inevitability.
always be in this loop, but the loop has to start somewhere.
Right.
And that's what makes it a paradox.
And that yeah.
That's why it's a predestination paradox, because the start is actually after he creates time travel and is able to actually be a part of time travel, to be able to create the loop, to be able to create it. Ethan, Agent Doe, which creates Jane and John. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point.
Yeah, it's dominoes. Like they just start falling.
Yeah,
and I don't think you can change them or alter them.
I'm thinking too hard. I apologize.
But that's why he's he's afraid to fall in love with his mom, because he knows that he's not actually going to be born if she doesn't fall in love with his dad.
And I thought it was pretty funny actually when he came. There was one point where they're kind of getting done with the setup story about Jane and getting transformed into John, and he's like, "Okay, follow me," and they go down in the basement. And then as he just casually, as he's singing in the as he's going down in the basement, he's singing, and he sings a song, "I Am My Own Grandpa."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
someone plays that on the jukebox too.
Yeah.
Oh, do they? I don't know.
Yeah, the guy plays that on the jukebox. I'm like, was that song ever in a jukebox? Was that ever a top 40 hit?
In that reality, it was.
It was like a novelty song.
Because John or Jane or bartender John, is he still John? Yeah. But anyway, maybe he put it in the jukebox.
Yeah, as a joke.
That was part. Yeah, that was one of the things that he did. Aside from, having sex with himself, at some point he decided to put that song in the jukebox.
But he has to have sex with himself,
I assume,
or he won't exist.
Because the temporal agent needs to be his own conception and his own death. Mind blown.
I know. That's
Well, and
Are we still talking about directing?
I just want to point out.
I think so.
With, again, some of those points when you said that it's slow, you're right. At the bar, it's kind of like, all right, let's get into this, and then you get into it, and it's like nonstop. You're like, whoa.
Yeah. Slow down.
I'm not sure I caught. Like I said, I had to watch this more than once the first time that I saw it to really catch what was really going on. But I guess I see that also as there. Again, my original comment when I talked about in writing was the directors and the writers for this movie are the same people. And so there was no one to say, hey, is this pacing bad? Or are we giving them too much? Or are we hitting them over the head too much? Or can we leave this more of a cliffhanger? There's no one to do that because they just did what they wanted to do. And I don't know if that is chalked up to the fact that they were 100% in charge of the story and how it was going to look on film at the same time. And it could be a pro and a con at the same time of being those people. I don't know. I mean, we've all done this kind of stuff before. Do we find ourselves not getting in a creative criticism in a sense to our vision and our idea so much because we are so enwrapped in not only writing it but making sure that it gets shown up on screen the way we wrote it, and so we're missing some of the that would have been really good if someone would have just said, or
Right. Well, I think sometimes as a director, if you're also the writer and the director, you can lose sight of what what your audience
and maybe it wouldn't have changed. I don't know. It's just something I had always thought about since they were both that creative vision sometimes gets lost because it's one person, or in this case 2 people's visions, and it's never questioned because there's only one group doing all of the major creative part. So I mean in a way I think one of the more important people in the process of putting stories like this together is the editor. Sure.
And for that, I mean, I almost say that like the editing and source code. I mean, the editor on both of these had like a huge challenge to keep the story flowing and get it to make sense. Because I mean, one wrong look from an actor or holding on someone's face just a little bit too long, and you can throw off the audience. And you guys know from editing, once you get in there and you have it right up in front of your face for days and days and days at a time, it's really easy to lose focus of the bigger picture. Yeah. So I mean, kudos to editors for both of these, but I think the editor on source code, I'm just going to call them the editor from the movies because I'm too lazy to type up IMDb to find out who it was. But I think the editor for source code did a much better job of kind of keeping the stuff flowing and moving forward, whereas like Predestination, like I said earlier, I think it gave away maybe a little bit too much early, and like Kyle said, it dumbed it down just a little bit too much. I would have rather not have been so kind of hit over the head with it. And so I don't know. I thought that was definitely a knock in source code's favor.
I know who the editors were. Paul Hirsch. Paul Hirsch was on
Mike.
Source Code, who was the editor for Star Wars, A New Hope, and
Empire Strikes
Back, Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, see, now, damn it, I should have known that, because when people talk about how great Irvin Kershner is, I was like, Irvin Kershner's okay, but Paul Hirsch is really the guy that made Empire Strikes Back awesome. So,
and
Lake Placid.
Yep. He's got a lot on his list.
But then
right? And then go look at Irvin Kershner's filmography, and you're like, how did you make Empire Strikes Back? Like, I think the editor that has made all the great movies probably had a hand in it.
But then he also edited Mission to Mars.
And The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes rent is due.
What? Yeah,
Yes.
and sometimes you only have so much to work with.
That's right.
Fair
And
No one goes in a Mission to Mars thinking it's Mission to Mars.
Matt Villa, 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 was the editor on Predestination. He did The Great Gatsby, Lego Batman, Australia. He also had done Daybreakers, which was another film by the two brothers that directed Predestination. Yeah. So there you go.
They really like them Ethan Hawke. Those Spielberg brothers really dig him.
Yes, they do. All right. Sorry, Andrew. I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
No, I had jumped in with the Paul Hirsch because I was like, he did Empire Strikes Back, guys, for source code. So.
This all I get to do is look up stuff on the internet while you guys talk.
All right.
You run out of porn, Mike?
I've watched Babe Runner. I don't know how many times.
Yeah, can I borrow your copy?
Did you wear yours out?
Yep.
Can you wear digital out?
The Blu-ray.
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
should see. I got some tits burned into my monitor because I paused it when I walked away. Wait, can I have a quick porn interjection? Is this completely irrelevant? But so like most red-blooded males, occasionally will watch porn. But I love to look for the movies with the weirdest names. That's just like a little personal hobby of mine. So then I just sort through compilations or stuff like on Pornhub or whatever website, and I look for whatever weird names people got them. And I came across one that was a porn compilation, but it was just called Herbie Hancock Tribute. And all of the music in it that the porn was set to was Herbie Hancock. And I was like, this is the fucking weirdest, most specific porn compilation. Like, how fucking bizarre is this? But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. I just was like, this.
Didn't he do the dating game theme? Was that?
I don't know. I don't generally watch those movies for more than a few minutes, so I don't get deep into the score. And it's usually just the first few minutes, so it's hard to, they can't really save anything. You just got to lead with the hits.
Well, you could really, with Predestination, he does end up having sex with himself. We have porn that's just, there's bizarre porn out there.
It's tangential. It's fine.
You could apply Dancing with Myself.
Hey.
No, he did not do the dating game, by the way.
Okay. I was struck by how specific that's oddly specific.
Did he do some Eddie Murphy movies though?
I think so.
Are you thinking of
or am I thinking of somebody else?
What's that guy's name who did the Axel Foley theme?
Yeah. Isn't that Herbie? Or is that somebody else?
It's not. It's
Hey Mike.
Yeah.
Can you look that up?
I'm looking at his hits right now.
I'm guilty of getting us off track, but we are really off track now.
We are in an alternate.
But I am currently looking up time travel porn.
Oh Jesus!
Harold Faltermeyer did the Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
But he also did the score to Cop Out, which, if you've ever seen, is a movie where it sounds like they left in the test tracks.
Yes.
Because it doesn't make any fucking sense to have that music in there.
I agree.
Anyways, moving on.
Wow. And what movies are we doing again? Was this Bill
We're doing
and Ted
Cop Out versus Copland.
Oh, okay.
Because they both have cop in the title.
Yeah.
Cop Rock. We're doing the first season of Cop Rock.
Oh my god.
Tom's having a fucking paradox right now. He's trying to think, how do I quit this podcast?
How can I go back and not get on this
How
podcast?
do I go back in time and not join this call?
Oh my god.
Gabe, what's your vote?
I did actually. I went back in time, but then I met my younger self, and we now have 3 children.
Oh wow!
Wow! Congratulations.
He went back, met his younger self, and made the Herbie Hancock compilation on porn.
For me to find and bring up in this podcast.
Wow.
Inception.
Gabe.
Okay.
Now.
Okay. I'll make this quick, like Kyle.
Nice.
Source code because of the pacing and the editing, which
right.
are basically the same thing, I guess.
Tom,
Yeah, I could do source code.
Andrew.
Yeah, for this one, I'm going to actually do source code.
Kyle.
Yeah, make it a foursome.
No, right. Play some Herbie Hancock. Jake,
My twin and our twins.
Jake Gyllenhaal had an earbud in during the train sequences in source code, into which the director would start playing music at any point in time to help Gyllenhaal's character look disoriented. The director played random songs as well as static buzz at times. That's one way to get
Surely he
reactions out
played
of your
Herbie
actor.
Hancock.
Yeah.
Predestination is the first Sparig Brothers film in 5 years following Daybreakers 2009, which followed a 6-year gap after their debut film Undead in 2003.
And Daybreakers is the one where it's the world has become all vampires and that humans are the inferior race, and good old Ethan Hawke is trying to find a cure to turn everybody back into humans. That's what that's about.
Interesting.
I know.
Sounds
move
a
on to
little
our-
bit like I Am Legend, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
Fourth round.
Well, they are vampires, and he's trying to turn himself back into a human.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Fourth round overall.
Sorry. Fourth round. Yeah.
Fourth round overall.
Hey, should we do the fourth
Yeah.
round now?
This was a situation where I had seen source code before, like years ago when it first came out, and then I hadn't watched it since. And then I watched Predestination today for the first time, and I watched source code like earlier this week. Source code is really, really great. I don't think it's quite as good as Moon for Duncan Jones, but I think it's a really solid time travel, and time travel's been really done a lot. So it's difficult to do something like time travel without falling into too many of the cliches that you have, like, I don't know, having sex with your mother, or what's the other stuff that you usually do?
Get
Killing
a bunch
Hitler.
of people from history.
Yeah, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's there's a lot of cliches that are easy to fall into, and both these movies do a pretty good job of staying away from them. I think what's interesting about source code is I feel like source code did a better job of putting together the mechanisms about how this time travel works, and that it's a secret government experiment, and these trailing 8 minutes of thoughts when people die, can help reconstruct realities to help start putting things together. I latched on more to that than I did Predestination's. Hi, welcome to the agency. Here's your violin. They didn't really waste a lot of time with here's how time travel works with this stuff. They laid out some rules, but nothing really about here's how we're able to do this. And granted, a lot of time travel movies don't do that because it's impossible. But I feel like the better time travel movies do try to make an effort, like Interstellar's one that does a decent job of looking scientifically how we could time travel realistically. So I give source code credit for taking a 90-minute movie and squeezing that kind of stuff in there. But again, with Predestination, it really had its teeth in me for the first hour or so, and then things just got so loopy and so weird, and I think I was able to be dragged along longer and further because Sarah Snook did such a convincing job playing John, and I feel like she and Ethan Hawke had some decent chemistry in the bar when they're talking back and forth, and they're having some interesting kind of ethical conversations about regret and moving forward with your life, and I really thought that was pretty good. But overall, I think Source Code is a more solid movie. It's probably the movie I'll go back to more often. I'll be honest with you, I think Predestination, if I watched it again, for me it'll be almost like a guilty pleasure. Like, I want to go back and watch it, not because it's bad, just because like I want to see how the twists were kind of hidden underneath the surface. And, were they there the entire time and I just didn't see it? I know at the beginning, when his face gets blown up, he looks in the mirror and he's like, my own mother wouldn't recognize me. And I was like, that's,
No.
that's like the second or third line of the movie. I do love it when they do that. Kill Bill did that in Volume 1, and I just like, you go back and watch it again. You're like, you son of a bitch. You told me right at the beginning what her name was. So, it's, I just think across the board, aside from acting, Source Code is just a more solid movie and will hold up better. So, and I'm sorry, one more thing. In Predestination, they talk about like this bomb's going to go off and you're going to kill 10,000 people, and it's really hard for me to like understand that. I don't know the stakes in Predestination so it just never seemed real. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I felt that they could always go back and try again or what the situation was, but I never felt like there was 10,000 lives online. Like the weight of the bombing was, smaller by a multitude of 100 in Source Code, but for some reason that bomb felt like a bigger threat and more real than whatever was going to happen in Predestination, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you might be able to chalk that up to the fact that you see the people who are affected by that bomb, and you never see the ramifications of the 10,000 person bomb. You don't get to know anybody who's going to be affected by that, other than later on in the movie you find out he thinks it's for a greater good. Either that or he has convinced himself that doing it saved thousands and thousands of more lives in the future. But yeah, you see the characters and get attached to them and then see them get blown up over and over again. But the bomb kind of fades into the background of Predestination at points because it's a character study a lot, and the sort of time travel-y, bomby thing kind of goes by the wayside at points. You lose sight of it. There's never... it's ironic for a bomb movie, but the ticking clock of trying to figure it out is like he's going to go crazy if he keeps jumping around in time. But you don't feel that pressure a lot of the time because it's removed from the situation. Also, the Fizzle Bomber is the dumbest name for a bomber I can think of. I know that they said, we always hated that name or whatever, but really, it took me out of the movie. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Why would they name anyone the Fizzle Bomber? They never explain what it has to do with the bombs.
Yeah. What?
I'm just like,
why would they call
it? It's a bad name.
It's a Fizzle Bomb.
It's just a bad name. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like a fake name. That's it's like, oh, your fake name's showing. It's so fake. It's like, oh my God. Like when you try not to get sued, so you change the name of something in a story, and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Like, that sounds like a fake name for a bomber. Like,
Kyle,
come on.
Kyle.
Yes.
The Fizzle Bomber was not in the original short work. Presumably, he was included in the film to provide additional conflict and fill out the runtime. Aside from this edition and a few changed background details, this film is rigorously faithful adaptation of the text.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
There must be something else in the story that happens that changes his face. I don't know. I would like to read the story because I think it's really compelling. It's an interesting idea and it's a difficult idea to pull off. And I think they did a very good job. Not perfect, but a really good job. Source Code was almost more like an action movie at the time. Okay. And the ticking clock element in that movie is very present all the time, which works to its favor sometimes when it wants you to get excited about something. But at other times, it's kind of a hindrance because it's hard to get sucked in and care about these characters when you only see them for sometimes 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds at a time before they get blown up.
Right. Also, there is a reference to the Fizzle War of 1963 and the war, and that the war fizzled, quote unquote. The story then explains the bomb with New York's number on it didn't go off, so presumably this war never happened. In the book. So there you go. Or story. Not book, story.
Yeah. Well, I think Also, I don't know where I was. I had something before Mike talked. I was just going to reply to something that Kyle had said. The Fizzle Bomber thing. Well, I get the impression that this is a loop that doesn't really change. It's a paradoxical loop, but it doesn't change. And I don't know. We see newspaper clippings of some sort of bombing, but I don't know that it ever really actually happens.
Well, he says at one point he says the bomb happens in March of 1975, but the bomber keeps changing the day.
Yeah,
which is weird because if it's predestined, how can that be? How can it not be at a certain day? And it's not until you realize that he's the bomber that's just probably bad information, or he's not being completely truthful about that. And because he's the Fizzle Bomber and he knows he's a time travel agent, he has to change the day.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
Yeah. So I got the idea that it was a closed loop, that you could not
and
alter things.
That he always stops it. But that doesn't really explain.
Because he has to, otherwise he does not become Ethan Hawke and therefore become the Fizzle Bomber. And when he walks in the laundromat at the end, he says, "You kill me, you become me." And then he kills him. And then he starts looking at the paper. And you're like, oh, okay. So that to me was kind of an indication that it's an inevitability.
I don't understand that really. So I totally get how Star Wars uses it. I don't understand how that works here, where he kills him and he's like, "Oh, that's cool." Is it that he's like, "Oh, I killed one person and I saved 10,000. Maybe I can parlay this into some more kill 12 and save 300, as long as the number's higher than I'm saving."
That's possible.
And he just kind of rationalized, okay, all right.
Yeah, but
right.
they don't explore it very much.
No, but I just really explained it to myself, so I'm good.
Sure.
Okay. And then, I think in source code, the emotional investment is there, though, because there are certain characters you don't get a lot about, but you realize, Jake Gyllenhaal is trying to save, one character in particular, and you're emotionally invested in that. Like, is he going to be able to save her, and that kind of thing. So it does make it more. It makes the stakes higher, and it makes it more. It makes you more invested as a viewer in what happens. But we don't know with Predestination. We're just our brains are just trying to figure out what's happening. Who is this and what time and why? We don't really have time to have that kind of emotional investment. Although they spend a lot of time with that, explaining Jane's story and how she became John and all that kind of thing. They spend a lot of time on that with the intention of getting you emotionally invested in what happens. But I'm not sure it works.
I think the character has a lot of emotions about things, but because things are inevitable, it feels a bit like they're powerless to change them sometimes. Even though that they're going to meet and have themselves and then become a bomber, etc., they show a lot of emotion and have a lot of conflict about the things, but they can't change what's going to happen. And so I think that might relieve a little bit of the pressure sometimes because it feels inevitable. Like, how the story is going to end. It has to end this way, or the story doesn't exist at all.
Right.
Predestination.
Yeah, I find it to be a really interesting take on this genre.
We briefly touched on it, but in source code, talking about whether or not he actually creates an alternate reality with the technology that he's mind melded with, and he's actually become part of source code, and how he creates an alternate reality.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think I think that applies to both films and the concept of alternate realities. I don't know. I don't know much about the actual science of that. There's some thought that there might be alternate universes, but I don't know what that means.
Have you seen Sliders?
No, actually, I haven't.
Oh, all right. Well,
the Jerry O'Connell show?
Yeah, Sliders. Yeah.
Wow.
No, I have not.
What a reference.
But it's like, yeah. What does that mean? I mean, if in source code, have they created some technology that can actually generate or spawn a new alternate universe? Because I don't know.
It's never explained.
Or are they actually in a computer themselves, and the computer has created another computer simulation inside of it?
Right.
You can do that with any movie that involves computers.
Right. I mean, it's the whole Matrix thought process of, is it a matrix inside of a matrix?
And there are some people, including scientists, who think that our reality is actually a computer simulation.
A simulation. Yep.
Yeah. So, I don't know how those, the idea of alternate universes applies to these films, but you could make arguments for it. Maybe source code is actually spawning alternate universes where those things are as real there as they would be here. But they don't overlap. We've somehow started an alternate universe from this point in time, and it continues on its own with its own trajectory.
Yep.
And something different. And you could argue that maybe with Predestination, but to me, the way Predestination is presented it's kind of a closed loop.
Yep.
And
it feels like one timeline with one person stuck in a loop.
But the problem being where that loop starts, like I mentioned earlier, that's the only thing that's like, okay, I don't, how does this start? Because Jane or one of them has to exist at some beginning to start that loop. But
remember he tells in the bar the only joke he knows is what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Right? Yeah.
And the answer
I
is
felt like
the
that
rooster.
was like, oh, that's a time travel joke.
Because it's
You could have that in any movie.
the whole movie, the whole story is a paradox, and
it is.
That's the whole point of it. Is you can't put that down and say this is the starting point, because it is a paradox. That's the definition of a paradox.
Right. But so I don't know that alternate universes apply as much there.
Oh,
that movie implies to me that movie Predestination implies to me a closed universe, a single closed universe. We've got a problematic beginning, but it doesn't change. There's not alternate versions of it. I don't know. That's the way I imagine it. But source code, you could explain was, this new technology has allowed us to either create or access an alternate reality that that we can change or at least jump into. I don't know. It's an interesting concept to me. I think Tom mentioned it earlier. I think a movie like Interstellar kind of gets into that a bit too.
Yeah. Well, I will just say for my main overall is that I'm not sure if it's just time travel or if it's actually the specificness of the complexity of the stories that we talked about. But it seems like these two movies definitely gave us pure enjoyment in the sense that we are talking about so many things about them and looking at the stories and how is this possible and how is this not possible. And I find that is what film is made to be. That, again, it goes back to whether you hate it or you love it, it caused an emotional reaction and it made you think and made you go, wow. And that's what I think is so great about both of these movies, that has done that in just this podcast, let alone anybody else who potentially has watched these movies or gone back and watched them again and really started thinking about them, that it really puts that they're just mind breaks in both films when you really start thinking about it. And it's great to see that we as filmmakers have that passion directly into watching these two movies. And I think they've done their job. Because I love movies like this that you're just like, it kind of breaks my brain. but yet they're good. But yet, what? At the same time.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to, like, a movie should be, for me, should be like a good meal. It's not really escapism. I want a movie that kind of hangs with me a little bit, that follows me around the next day and kind of, pokes me in the back and was like, hey, and like start, toss it over in your head and think about it some more. So, and for some reason, Con Air does that for me as well. I can't explain it.
I would like to know what that reason is.
I can't explain it. I love that movie.
Yeah.
All right.
These definitely both, they definitely get us thinking about these topics, and I found them both entertaining in their own ways. So
even with my faux pas, I want to say you're welcome.
Let's put it to a vote. Tom.
Gotta go source code.
Andrew.
Man, this is tough. Purely for the mentality, I'm going with Predestination. But source code is just a finer than frog hairs away.
Nice. Kyle.
It was inevitable. I had to choose Predestination.
All right. And Gabe.
Well, in this universe, I'm gonna pick source code.
All right. All right. I have two pieces of trivia for each film. Bellegarde Castle, a military project code name for the unit that runs source code project, takes its name from a variation of what game? I want to ask you guys, see if you know.
Beleaguered Castle?
Yes, Beleaguered Castle. Totally said it wrong.
Yeah, Bellegarde. I don't know.
Yeah, Bellegarde.
French?
What game?
Yes.
It's not chess, is it?
It's a variation of a game. It's solitaire.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
The only thing in the back of the white van that is real is the Stars and Stripes box. The rest was made by VFX.
Whoa!
Oh.
What?
My brain is doing what the train did.
What? The van?
Really?
Yes.
The bomb van?
The only thing in the back of the white
notice.
van that is real is the Stars and Stripes box. The rest was made by VFX.
Wait, so the guy
way.
was fake?
Whoa.
The guy wasn't real?
I don't know. It doesn't say if he was real, but I'm
Yeah,
guessing,
I assume he and the box.
I'm guessing he in the box, yeah.
Well, that's a slam on that guy by not calling
that?
him real.
I would think that you could,
Here's the problem. I was reading the rest of the trivia.
no room for the camera?
No, actually. The problem was originally they had a train stop that they were going to use, like a train station, and that fell through. The people came back and wanted more money after they said that they would do it. So they had to turn around and build a stage, essentially a train station in a parking lot. And so they ran out of time to do stuff with the van. Practically. Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing. I would have never guessed that.
It's pretty cool.
No, doesn't look like it at all.
So was the inside of the van just all painted green screen?
I don't know. It doesn't go. It doesn't go into it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kidding.
The picture of the Crosby Shows building in the beginning of Predestination is actually a picture of what? Did you guys recognize the picture?
In Predestination, where in it?
It's the picture of the Crosby Shoes building.
No.
It is the exploded reactor number 4 from Chernobyl power plant.
What?
Oh.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That might explain the beginning. That's how the loop started.
I should have known that. I have that framed on my desk right here.
Sure, that you have it
Chernobyl?
autographed. Who'd you get to autograph that?
Stellan Skarsgård, because he was in the TV movie.
Right. Didn't you win a Golden Globe for that?
He did.
By the
he
way,
did.
he
It
was
was a really
fantastic in that movie, in that show.
It was a really great acceptance speech too.
Noah Taylor's third appearance this was Noah Taylor's third appearance as a quote unquote supervisor of a time traveler. He played similar roles.
Vanilla Sky.
Yes,
Yeah,
and then
Vanilla
what other
Sky.
movie? And we've done this
The
movie.
Hitler one.
No.
When he was Hitler.
No.
Oh, wasn't he in Bill and Ted?
No.
Oh.
Edge of Tomorrow.
He's in Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
That's right. He's the doctor.
Dr. Carter.
Holy shit! Yes,
I think
that's
he's been
crazy. I just saw
typecast.
his head. I just saw his head in my mind, and I just clicked.
I think he was typecast.
Yeah, I totally remember him. When I saw him in this, I'm like, oh, what I recognize him the most from is Vanilla Sky for me.
Yeah.
Bellegarde. I said Bellegarde instead of Bellegarde. Oh my God, I am tired. All right.
It's a weird name. It's
It
a
is.
mouthful, even when they say it in the movie. Like, ugh. Almost as bad as a fizzle bomber.
Fizzle bomb. All right, let's move on to our recommendations for this month, and we're going to kick it off with Andrew.
Ah, crap. Well, I'm definitely not going to do a time travel movie. I think I've killed off my time travelness. So I am going to go with one movie that was phenomenal. It is a sequel, and it's a movie that was just as funny as the first, if not as funny, maybe even better. And the cameos, it felt like a Muppet movie with the number of cameos in it. It was so good. Anybody?
The Muppet movie?
No.
The new Jumanji.
No. Zombieland Double Tap.
Nice.
Oh,
I haven't seen it
It's
yet.
equal to Zombieland. Oh man, it is so well done and it is so good. So
I feel like did it not do well in the box office?
that I don't know. I just know that it was phenomenal.
Because I feel like it went like from the theater to rental right away, which is
It made almost 2.5 times its budget. So
Oh,
that's good. That's good. That makes me happy
yeah.
because the first one is fantastic, and I was a little sad that maybe the second one didn't do very well.
and I was worried going into it that it was going to follow with your traditional, sequel faux pas, and it does not. It delivers like you would be watching the first one. It's phenomenal. So if you've seen the first one, watch the second one. If you haven't seen the first one, watch them both. Zombieland,
right.
Double Tap.
Thank you, Andrew. Kyle.
Is it just me, or the older I get, the more I like Woody Harrelson? Is it just me? I don't know.
He's
Maybe a thing.
he's getting better as he gets older.
That's great.
He's good.
He is.
Yeah.
Oh, hey,
he is
Mike.
good.
Sorry. Speaking of better when you get older, I got a joke for you.
All right.
What time does Sean Connery like to play badminton?
I don't know.
Tennis. Isn't that terrible? It's really bad.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I don't think you should get a recommendation now.
That is
All right,
fantastic.
I will pass on.
Nope.
Write
Nope.
that down.
Nope. You get a
Okay,
recommendation.
my recommendation for a movie that was basically about time travel and has become a documentary about current life is Idiocracy.
Yeah.
But I mean time travel in the sense that someone is lost in time and comes to in the future. Mike Judge is one of the most criminally underrated comic minds, I think. Doesn't get nearly enough love. I personally still think if you go back and watch Beavis and Butthead, it holds up as an examination of stupid people. And it's really funny. I've not liked all of his movies, but I love Idiocracy. And it's one of the few movies I like Dax Shepard in. I'm not a huge Dax Shepard fan, but he is great as Go Away, I'm Baiting. And guy watching Punch Him in the Nuts. And it's fucking great. Idiocracy is jam full of jokes. And Terry Crews plays President Hector Macho Camacho, and Brondo, it's got what plants crave. Electrolytes. I mean, it's got a million jokes in it that are hilarious.
Yeah. I agree with you. Mike Judge is highly underrated.
I really think he is so goddamn funny. Yeah. And I'm glad he's had success and keeps getting jobs and gets to make his stuff.
Yep.
It's really good.
Yeah.
All right. Gabe.
Well, we've been doing this for 10 years, and I can't remember what I recommended and what I didn't. And I always try to have something that relates to what we're doing. So I'm just going to recommend a bunch of movies that maybe I already recommended.
Wait, you get one.
A bunch?
Yeah.
A bunch. 5. I've got 5.
Oh my God.
That either I recommended or we've done or relate in one way. I'm sure I've done them all. Some of my favorite, I'm gonna give you a list of my favorite. Well, they're not all time travel, but
What's going on?
What are we doing?
I have a really hard time. Yeah, I've been doing this for 10 years. I have a hard time having new recommendations. I don't get a lot of time to watch a lot of new movies, so I have a hard time having relevant recommendations for these things. So I'm going to recommend Edge of Tomorrow or Live, Die, Repeat, depending on how you like to refer to it, because that's one of my favorite time travel movies ever. I like the whole
so
concept.
Good.
Very cool. One of my favorites from my childhood was Time Bandits. Have you guys seen Time Bandits?
I've never seen Time Bandits.
I haven't seen it in a long time. It might not hold up, but
It does.
In my childhood, it was really fun. I really liked it, and I think maybe I recommended it before, but I don't know. I don't remember. Minority Report is a fun take on whole time kind of travel, or at least observing time. Tom mentioned it before. Interstellar. Interstellar is probably one of the more scientifically accurate, although also still very kind of mind-bending and strange, representations of possible time travel. And then when I realized that Duncan Jones had directed Source Code, the first thing that came to mind was Moon. Moon is a fantastic movie. I'm sure we've done it. I'm sure I've recommended it. Watch it again.
Yep,
it's
we've
awesome.
done a few of those that you mentioned.
We have. And that's my problem. If I could travel back in time and make more time to watch movies, I would do that. That's my universe would be like an infinite loop of watching all the movies I want to see that I can't. So I'm sorry. I know we're supposed to recommend one movie, but I just couldn't. So there you go.
Thanks, Gabe.
Deal with it.
Tom.
Well, I always have 3 titles ready. So
because Tom can travel in time.
But Gabe took all of them.
Oh,
did I really?
No, you didn't. You didn't. I was just going to get away from time travel movie altogether. First, I feel bad because my real recommendation isn't tied to what we talked about at all tonight. But I do want to make one recommendation, small, that is. And you should check out John Mulaney's and the Sack Lunch Bunch on Netflix. It's this weird sketch comedy music show that John Mulaney put together with these kids, and it's absolutely hysterical. If anybody grew up in the late 70s, early to mid 80s, you're gonna connect with this show. It kind of speaks to that Electric Company and Sesame Street stuff that we grew up in, but there are a ton of jokes in there that only adults are going to get. And it's really, really good. But the reason it's tied to it is the last 10 minutes, Jake Gyllenhaal gives probably his greatest comedic performance ever. He is hysterical in the last 10 minutes of this show. So even if you don't watch the entire thing, fast forward to 56 minutes and start watching Jake Gyllenhaal's bit. You will thank me later. But have any of you guys seen it?
No, not yet.
No.
We watched it.
Is it a single show or is it like multiple episodes?
Nope, it's just a one-off, 1 hour special, like they used to do on TV. And we watched it with our kids, and we absolutely loved it. And then, in fact, they watched it, and then they watched the last 10, 12 minutes with Jake Gyllenhaal 4 times in a row because they could not stop laughing. So it was great. But my real recommendation, so we are 6 days from Oscar nominations. I can't believe it. And then I think the Oscars are 3 days after that or something this year. But the my recommendation is I hope will be one of the best actor nominees is Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. It is a tense, nervous kind of crime thriller, and it's a really, really fun ride. And I have an Apple Watch, and I got done watching the movie, and I looked, and it keeps track of your heart rate, and my heart rate did not go below 90 for the entire 2 hours it was on.
You should have that checked.
Yeah.
No, it's because right now it's at 40, so that's good. Oh, hang on.
Even after I did my recommendations?
I think I'm dead. Hang on. Yeah, you're fine.
Your resting is 40? Holy cow.
My resting is 55. Anyway, so
you're in good shape, Tom.
That's the rumor, but I don't know if it's true. So anyway, check out Uncut Gems. It is a really, really fun ride, and Adam Sandler is at his absolute best. Anyone that likes Punch Drunk Love, this is the kind of movie that you're always hoping to see again from Adam Sandler, and he delivers, and everybody in it, even Kevin Garnett is, he's a sports star, but he's really great too, and it's a movie really kind of unlike anything that's out there right now. So people who are there's nothing new or original out there, well, I give you Uncut Gems.
Very nice. I've heard really good things about that movie.
Yeah, I want to see it.
It's a little polarizing. Some people are really going to be turned off by it, but if you give it a chance and kind of get onto the thread they're trying to feed you, you'll love it.
All right, thanks, Tom. Mine is the 1994 classic starring Ron Silver, Mia Sara, and our generation's actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's directed by Peter Hyams. Time Cop. That's all I got to say.
Oh, God.
I love that movie. It's a guilty pleasure, and I love this movie, and I don't know why. Can't explain it. He does the splits in it. That must be it. So anyway.
He always does the
Did you
splits.
narrow it down?
I know. So yeah, check out.
Do you see his butt in the
Time Cop.
movie?
No. Well, I mean, when he does the splits, it's not naked though. Hey. Anyway, I love this movie back when it came out for some reason. It has not aged well, but it does have one of my favorite character actors. Bruce McGill is in it. He plays his chief or whatever. I always like that guy in whatever he's in. So check out Time Cop, and I'm pretty sure I've already suggested this movie probably at least twice.
That's okay. Gabe just redid 5 of his own recommendations.
It's true.
I'm sure I did. I think if I didn't recommend them, we did them as shows.
We did.
I was
We have Moon and Edge of Tomorrow. I know of. I can remember off the top of my head. All right, let's poke the monkey. Find out who won.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Your winner by decision is a tie!
No. Oh, my God.
Wow.
Well, it was inevitable.
Go back. We got to start over. Start the episode again. Go back to the beginning.
Should we talk about Bill and Ted versus Back to the Future?
We should.
Which is funny because we already did that too. So
God.
All right. Where can people find you? Maybe see stuff that you've done or hire you as a jerk sitter? Kyle.
Well, my rates have recently gone down because the market is shrinking. Everybody's got a jerk sitting side hustle these days. So you can do it while you're walking the dog. That involves a leash. It's fine. I guess you can find me on Facebook, but I don't know why you would want to. You can go to YouTube and look at Southsider Studios. I'm in some of those movies. Sometimes I'm kissing a guy in one. So enjoy that. I hope no one at my work is listening to this. I'll know if you are because you start looking at me funny. But yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah, I'm done.
Right. Thanks, Kyle. Andrew?
Yeah.
You can find us out on ArizonaInkStudios.com. We have all of our short films, our mid-length films, and of course all the information and fun things about us, and of course all the fun links to all of our social media that you can follow and get involved with, and then of course links to this wonderful podcast, so you can leave comments out there and find ways to listen to it there as well. So Arizona Ink Studios, INK Studios.com.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Gabe.
Well, like Kyle, I guess you could look me up on Facebook if you really wanted to, or you could check out some of our films on onegenomeshort.com.
Thank you, Gabe. Tom.
I'm on Facebook still. God damn it. I just can't quit you. But people can generally find me hanging around laundromats and train stations, plotting to blow up on social media. Only to be foiled by me hanging around laundromats and train stations, plotting to blow up social media. Only to be foiled by me around.
Oh no, he's stuck in a time loop.
Plotting to blow up social media, only to be foiled by me.
Great. This podcast is now on a list. Thanks a lot.
I said blow up social media. You can't get in trouble for saying blow up social media.
He's just going viral.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Tom.
What's up?
Like Kyle said, you can watch our films on YouTube. Just search Southsider Studios. And the boys and I would appreciate it if you could leave us a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting service you use. It helps us reach new listeners. It's important. Maybe one day we can actually have ads on the show. You can contact us at cinesmac@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search Cinesmac. For February, Denzel Washington and Mahershala Ali. Did I say his name right?
Mahershala
Ali attempt to out-drama each other as Fences takes on Moonlight. Did you get that, Andrew? Fences and Moonlight.
Don't watch Bill and Ted and Back to the Future again.
For Kyle,
sure?
Gabe, Andrew, Tom, and myself, thanks for listening, and go catch a flick.
I'm Bill S. Preston, Esquire. And I'm Chad Theodore Logan. Yeah! And we're Wild Stallions!
What if it's Raining Men and Let the Bodies Hit the Floor are the same event, but they're from different perspectives?
Oh my God.
Where did you hear that? That's disturbing.
That's fantastic.
So wait,
I
the lead singer of Drowning Pool died by choking on his own vomit, I think, which is ironic. Did he go back in time and become one of the Weather Girls or whatever they were called?
Yeah, the Weather Girls.
The Weather Girls is the name.
That's who sang It's Raining Men.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think so.
I never knew that.
Look at Gabe.
Google.
Look at Gabe acting like you don't know.
Yeah.
The Weather Girls.
I never heard that before.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Meemaw and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.